Hey boys and girls, welcome to another flip video. Today we're going to be talking about measurement, and I'm actually going to be showing you a lot of these measurements right in this video screen. So over here we've got the US measurement system. So there are inches, there are feet, there are yards, and there are miles. So put those in perspective for you. On a ruler, on this side, that's an inch. So if you see, it's roughly the size of my first knuckle on my finger. Might be about the size of on your hand might be about the size of your thumb on your knuckle, or your knuckle on your thumb. The foot is the whole ruler. Yeah. So this whole thing is a foot. A yard is, we're gonna back up the yardstick. Yeah, I got the whole thing in there. So a yardstick is this, and then a mile. I can't show you a mile on the video because it's a little bit too big to hold. On the other side, over here, the metric system, we've got the millimeters, we've got the centimeters, we've got the meters. Those are the three we've got. So on a ruler, this side is the inches, the ones that are more spaced out. On the other side, where it's a little bit smaller, that's the metric side. So these really, really tiny lines, and I'm going to get this really, really close. All those tiny lines, each of those tiny lines are millimeter. So you see they're not very far apart. That's my fingernail. You see my fingernail is about the size of 2 millimeters. So very, very tiny, the millimeters. Now the centimeters are where it's the 1. So those are a little bit bigger, but if we compare it to an inch, my finger here is an inch, and then up here is the centimeter. So it's it's a little smaller than half an inch. Now meter is this size, which is about the size of a yardstick, but if I match up the yardstick to the end, you'll see the top one is the yardstick. The meter is actually slightly longer than a yard, but I like to think of it as that the meter is about the same size as the yard. So that's your introduction. So we've got the inch, the foot, the yard, and then the mile, which is too big to show you right now. And then the millimeters. So on this side, the really, really tiny ones. We've got the centimeters, which are slightly bigger, but still about half an inch. And then the meter, which is bigger than yardstick, but about the same size. So here we've got a credit card. And on the credit card, I am worried about the thickness of the credit card. The thinness, like right on the side. What do you think would be best to measure that with? I would say I always use a millimeter. Credit cards are very, very thin. Millimeter would work best for that. So I'm giving you some concrete things that we can relate them to. So on your paper, I would write millimeter, then I would write dash, credit card. Now, if I were to measure a Expo marker, I could use an inch, or I could even use centimeters. An Expo marker, the cap itself, is almost exactly an inch when I measured. And then the E on the Expo marker, that is about a centimeter. I measured those this afternoon. So, inch, I would say, is the Expo marker cap, and the centimeter is the Expo E. So I measured those things, and here's another representation. You see that they're about almost 2.5 centimeters for every inch if we look down here. So those are some things to help you remember about how size of an inch and a centimeter. So hopefully you have that written down. On our next one, we've got a desk, normal desk. I would measure that in feet. Shoes are another thing that are measured in, well, adult shoes are about measured in feet, but the desk is, I'm going to measure this student desk right now, and that is about 2 feet tall. So that's about as tall as it's going to be. I wouldn't use yards quite yet because yard is still not quite tall enough. So I would say 2 feet are the height of a desk, or you can just think that it's a ruler. Either one, what you ever want to write down there. Here we have a hallway. And here's another representation showing you that a meter stick is slightly longer than a yardstick. I'm just going to close that down. I would use yards to measure a a hallway because yards are bigger than feet, and so a hallway could be measured in yards or meters. And tomorrow we'll talk a little bit about how many feet are in a yard, how many inches, and all that stuff. But yards would be a good thing to measure hallways in. Or meters, because as we know, a meter is roughly about the same size as a yard. And the final thing, we've got a little aerial map here. The blue dot right there is HJB. And right here is the traffic light, and those are those apartments. So from HJB all the way out here to that traffic light, that's almost exactly 1 mile. I think it is exactly 1 mile. Which shows you why I couldn't hold a mile to show you. So a mile is really, really big. And tomorrow we'll talk about how many feet are in a mile and how many yards are in a mile. But mile is the biggest measurement that we'll talk about. There's bigger measurements. But so if you think from HJV to the traffic light, that's almost exactly 1 mile. 4 times around the track is a mile, like Miss Kidwell is having you run miles a lot. That's a good way to remember it. So you bring back to school problem. Your job is to think of things other than the examples I've given you that are about an inch, about a foot, about a yard, about a mile, about a millimeter, about a centimeter, and about a meter long. I want you to think in your own life, what are some things that are about those measurements? So you'll have a total of 7 things that you can write down, bring those back to school. If you want to, you can even go above and beyond and actually go and roam around your house and measure that. Hopefully you have a ruler and hopefully you have a yardstick. And if you're driving anywhere tonight, you could also try to find something that's about a mile. So that's all I've got for you this evening, and I'll see you in the morning.